Hi everyone, this is Katie with Katie Loves Classic Books, and I'm here today with my December wrap-up finally. So, I read 3 books in December. I don't know why, but I feel like probably because of the holidays, I feel like I don't read as much in December as in other months. I did read a 4th book, but I didn't finish it till January. So, the first book I finished in December was The Mad Ship by Robin Hobb, and this was published in 1999, and I gave this 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. This is the second book in a fantasy trilogy called The Live Ship Traders. And The Live Ship Traders is a series like within a greater series called The Realm of the Elderlings. So The Live Ship Traders was the second series in that greater series, and I've been really enjoying it so far. So, the first series in the big series, the Farseer trilogy, I absolutely fell in love with. It totally stole my heart. And then starting out the Live Ship Traders, so the one I read before this, I recognized how good it was, and I really enjoyed it. And I did love it in a way, but it didn't quite steal my heart. But I thought the characters were fantastic and the world building was fantastic. And then in this second book, I completely fell in love with it. And yeah, so I'm just so addicted to this series. So the Live Ship Traders in particular follows seafaring people, sailors, traders, pirates. There are ships that come alive called live ships. There are dragons. There are sea serpents. It's so much fun. And the first trilogy was set in a different part of this world. So this like seafaring community and the seafaring part of this world that Robin Hobb has created is so fantastic. Such wonderful world building. And what I love the most about Robin Hobb is her characters, and I've absolutely fallen in love with the characters in The Live Ship Traders. So the first trilogy, the Farseer trilogy, was written by the first person perspective of a guy named Fitz, and I loved Fitz and I loved his perspective, and still through him I loved all the other characters. But what's so cool about The Live Ship Traders is that it's written in the third person but follows a bunch of different characters, and that's been a really cool experience, and so I've just fallen in love with so many of them. Yeah, I don't think I can like talk about any of their individual journeys really in the second book without spoiling anything, but I'm just really loving how they're all growing, Althea and Brashen and what's going on with them, Wintro, Kenneth, and Ita, and kind of how that trio is working out, the different ships. Paragon plays a big part in this one. I mean, all these characters, I guess, will mean nothing to you unless you're familiar with this series already. Yeah, there's a character named Malta, and she's really grew up in this one a lot, and her relationship with a man named Rain, and I really loved seeing that in this book, and I can't wait to talk more about it. I have finished, but at the time I'm filming this, because I'm filming it a little bit late, I have finished the third one, so I won't talk about the third one here though too much. Yeah, but this second book was really fantastic, and this trilogy is really fantastic, and like I said, with this book I really fell in love with this second trilogy, and I thought that the plot and the pacing were really fantastic in this one in particular. Yeah, and I just recommend, if you love fantasy or kind of want to delve into it, I really recommend Robin Hobb, and do start with the Farseer trilogy. I thought this one could be read separately when I read the first book, and I guess that it could, but I really think you should read the Farseer trilogy first, because in this one and then even the third one, it really starts to connect, and you can see how it's all going to come together. Well, you can't see how it's going to come all together, but like you see a little bit like the point of it all. So I would really read them in order because they're all so good, and it's such a rewarding experience. So The second book I finished in December was Evelina by Frances Burney, and this was published in 1778, and I gave this 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. So, Evelina is an epistolary style novel written in letter format, and it's a coming-of-age story and like a comedy of manners, I guess. It's about a girl named Evelina, and she has lived most of her life in the countryside under the care of this, under the care of a vicar, I think. And then she goes to London to visit with family friends, and it's kind of her entrance into society and into the world and how she navigates that. And Frances Burney was thought to be a contemporary of Jane Austen's, and to have really possibly inspired her. And I saw that with certain aspects of this novel for sure. So, the characters weren't anything special, but I still liked them. I almost feel like Evelina was written like she wasn't really described that much, especially physically. And I almost feel like it was so that young ladies at the time could kind of see themselves in Evelina or put themselves in Evelina's shoes. I mean, I don't know if it was meant to be that way, but I kind of could see how that could happen. And I mean, Evelina and some of her struggles, like, I feel like are still relevant to teenage girls today, or, you know, coming into the world. Some of her struggles, like just some of her naivety, her trying to deal with like unwanted male attention, trying to I guess get the attention of a man she likes, and not seem like a complete fool in front of him. And yeah, and then she becomes smarter about the ways of the world as the novel goes on. And also she, you know, coming to terms with parental issues. She has a difficult parent background, especially with her father. She feels rather rejected by him, and so she must struggle with that and difficult family scenarios. So all of that was kind of, you know, it could be relatable to young people today as well. Although some of it was very much of its time, of course. Although that was fun to read. You know, I haven't read that many books from the 18th century, and it was really fun to see London in the 18th century and all the different amusements and the society and all of that. They went out a lot to what they called public places, and such as like plays and operas and, gosh, balls and pleasure gardens like Vauxhall, if you've ever heard of that. And it was really fun to read all about that, and I really got a good sense of this time period. I will say that I think I enjoyed this more like the last third of the book. There is like a romance element which I liked, and the romance element was the part that really reminded me of Jane Austen. That kind of picked up the last third, and so I enjoyed that, and it was very reminiscent of reading Jane Austen and all of that. Yeah, and like I said, the characters were nothing special. You know, the romantic interests, like he was cool, like the nice characters, like they're nice, nothing crazy. There were a couple that were a little bit ridiculous, like this man named Captain Mervyn. He liked to play pranks on people, but almost in a cruel way, and he was rather weird. And then Evelina's grandmother, who was like a French woman named Madame Duval, and her and Captain Mervyn have this really bizarre like angst between each other, and Captain Mervyn plays a lot of pranks on her in a very malicious way, and Madame Duval is just a weird character. I almost feel like in their relationship, because I think the relationship between England and France during this period of time was rather tense, so I feel like it kind of, their relationship kind of reflected some of that. Yeah, but overall this was quite enjoyable. It was nice reading a novel from the 18th century and by a female author too, you know, because there that many of those back then, and nice to see an inspiration for Jane Austen. So I would recommend this, perhaps if you're a Jane Austen fan and you have read all of her books and are looking, for something similar, maybe a little bit older. This is pretty cool. Okay, and then the last book I read in December was Life After Life by Kate Atkinson, and this was published in 2013, and I gave this 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. So this follows a girl named Ursula Todd. Her life kind of spans the 2 world wars, and she has this quirk in that she is born over and over again, but in the same life. So she's born, and then at some point, she dies, and then she comes back and she does the same life over again, but it changes over time, and each life is different. And that was a very interesting concept. It could be a mundane concept, but it wasn't. Each time we revisit Ursula's life, it kind of starts out in the same events are repeated, but in a different way, and you see different perspectives of it. So it's not boring. But then later on, there's so much of her life to be talked about that it kind of skips ahead to different sections. So you get different parts of her life, and it really isn't ever boring, and it's always different. So that was just a very interesting concept. And so this novel really brings into question, it's kind of the nature of, I guess, cause and effect, and just how these little moments shape our lives, and if, how one moment can change everything afterwards and impact other people's lives, and how this affects people's personal lives, and also how it affects history, and asking certain questions. If certain things had happened, would history be different? And this book definitely asks a question about history that I'm sure many people have asked, which is, what if Hitler never came into power? What if something happened to Hitler before that point? How would that have changed the course of the world? Because it really looks at, this period of history and the 2 world wars, especially World War II. And so it made me really think about all these little moments, and really pay attention to life, and how much each moment matters, and the implications of each choice. And I would say this is about Ursula doing it over and over until she gets it right. Although I'm not sure if she ever necessarily does, although in some respects, some things turn out better. I don't know. It was very interesting. And I love the Todd family. They were a really wonderful family to read about and become attached to. I just don't know if I was necessarily that fond of Ursula. I liked her. There was something about this, it was such a unique concept. It was done really well. It asked really interesting questions. The family as a whole was one I really cared about. And Ursula was cool, but there was just something that kept me at arm's length about this. And I feel like it has to do with Ursula, but maybe just the tone in general. It was a very heavy book. I mean, this is a heavy time period, and some of the topics were very heavy. But there's something about Ursula. She's maybe too melancholic or something like that. And maybe not that. I don't know, something about her tone, her story that was like that, and that's totally okay, but it kept me from loving it for some reason. So this was a very good book, just didn't absolutely love it, but it was pretty fantastic, and Kate Atkinson is a wonderful writer and just did an excellent job crafting this novel. There's another novel, it's not really a sequel or anything, but it's called Gone in Ruins, and it's about Ursula's brother, so I'm not rushing to go pick that up, but I definitely want to read it at some point. And he was a great character, and like I said, I really like her family, so I'm interested to read more about her family and to check out more of Kate Atkinson's work. So those are all the books I read in December. Feel free to comment below if you've read any of these books or you have something to recommend to me or something along those lines. If you want to read written reviews, I'm always writing them. I post them right after I finish a book on Tumblr and Goodreads. Tumblr, I post quotes and stuff like that too. I have a Patreon account, and I do have a few Patreons or patrons, I don't know, right now. So thank you so much for supporting me. I very much appreciate it. And if you feel like supporting me, feel free to check that out, and I will leave a link below. And I'm sorry this was a little bit late, but I jumped on the opportunity to film this. I really want to film a favorite books of 2018 video, but I don't know. I hope I can do that at some point. Maybe it'll just be a little bit later than you might think. It's just hard enough, like, finding space and time to do the monthly wrap-up. So regardless, I'll see you for my January wrap-up, but hopefully I'll have a favorite books of 2018 video because I really want to share what they all were. Alrighty, everyone. Have a great rest of your January. Bye.